What we're asking here is, what is your priority of spending? What would be the lowest priority? Let's just say, for instance, all of you just said, no, I'm not cutting. The sky's not falling. I'm not Chicken Little. But let's just say, for instance, that you change your mind, that the current environment gets worse, recession hits, you're seeing less demand from your consumers, and you have no choice. What would be your lowest priority? Where would you cut first? Jim, I'm going to ask you, sir.
So I think looking at that cloud migration, um, it's been 2+ years journey, and many of my colleagues are maybe further along or a little bit behind. The ask from executives now are, the spend is very high, not really what was projected, in terms of the planning, simply because the ease of spinning up a compute and running massive data exports and imports has caught everyone by surprise. So from a cloud spend perspective, it is more an ask to tighten our spend, to have more visibility around, are we using the right compute levels for what we're trying to achieve, right? And this is not only production work, but development work as well. Okay. So I would say the inverse would be, look at our cloud spend and see what we can optimize and make more cost-effective decisions.
Yeah, jumping to this real quick, we were asking if you did decrease, not specific areas or vendors, but how would you? And reducing cloud resources is number one. As number two, number one was consolidate around redundant vendors, consolidate on platform vendors. Real quickly, we're going to wrap up this macro section, but I want everyone to get a chance to speak. Glenn, same question to you, sir. If I asked you the inverse here, you named observability. Is there anything else where you think might hit the cutting room floor more quickly than others?
Well, I will say it. I already mentioned observability is one of that is going to be driving, because I want to be reducing my infrastructure. So that means I want to be reducing my needs in the observability space. The other area that is going to be impacted at some degree is more in my analytical and data warehousing space. Think about it, if I have less traffic, if I have less demand, probably right now I'm optimizing my queries from a real-time type of components. In some areas, probably overspending, because I want to achieve something, but my business process is not aligning what my observability is, my data warehousing is driving on my analytical. So I can start cutting off in the optimization pace in the data warehousing space. So those are the two areas that is driven based more really in my traffic or in the demand that I have. So that's the one that I go in right away. And I agree with I'm not saying I will be a slow down my cloud migration. Pretty much what I will be doing is more rationalization of my vendors that I'm having right now. And same thing, identify my entire infrastructure, how is set it up. So that goes around really, what is my cloud security posture management, for example, that I have, and what is exactly my cloud cost controls that I want to be having. And based on that, I can start reducing that area. So those are the three ones that I will say from my side that I already have in my radar, that if I have to hit the button and I have to start cutting in some degree, those are the three main areas.
I appreciate that. I did an interview last week and we spoke specifically about this, about the consolidation. And what they said to me was, this behooves the platform guys. This behooves the people that have been in your organization a long time, whether it's Microsoft, SAP, even if some people are still aligned with Oracle, that you might be wanting to consolidate business among those vendors you already have. Just sort of a jump ball to that. And the backdrop as we move to the ETS, specifically these emerging names. When I see 40% people say they want to consolidate vendors, which you probably should be doing on a consistent basis anyway, let's be honest. But does that impact your ability to evaluate more emerging players, which we're about to get into? Jump ball for that one. Actually, since Niraj, you haven't spoken yet, do you feel in an environment like this where you need to consolidate your vendors, do the emerging players have a little bit of a harder time getting the POC?
So what one of the easiest apple, right, to pick is, you have 2 or 3 vendors being used in different departments or different groups within our organization, and that's doing the same thing, right? Monitoring, log management, right? If we can consolidate on the licensing and get a group discount, right? That's where we looked at. It's easy picking, right? And and we're also, like, exactly what you're saying. We're looking at different vendors across, and 2-3 different software vendors are doing same exact thing. So if we are able to consolidate, have synergy around the different groups, it makes sense, and able to cut down. Like solar wind is a perfect example, right? That we're cutting down very dramatically because of security stuff, as well as newer vendors are very easily be able to replace that functionality in the cloud, right? SaaS based application software vendors. So that's kind of opening up a door for the new vendors to come in and get a little bit of that piece, and they're able to do it in a more modern cloud base, and we have less management of those systems in-house.
Excellent. I appreciate it. Now we're going to move on to Glenn as we touch on the ETS, because we're going to kick off on the ETS on security. But first, we're going to take a quick look at some of the overall, just so everyone knows here. Here is our most recent ETS survey. It was polled from May 5th until May 30th. We recently released all the data. We had about 930 plus IT decision makers. 250 came from Global 2000 organizations. And again, everyone out there, so they know, we're asking about the awareness, the evaluation, and the actual utilization of these vendors. Whereas the public companies, we will be tracking actual spend dollars. So this is slightly different. And I'm going to jump over to our actual finding webinar here and get right into it. This is basically a picture of all the vendors we cover, and there's more than 450 in this survey. And we're talking about the overall highest net sentiment, which is evaluation and utilization combined, among the larger mind shares here. So I want to call out a few names that we're going to be touching upon. Databricks is one. We have Insecurity, Sneak, Abnormal, Beyond Trust. All of those names have been really high in this. On the SD-WAN side, I was surprised to see Aviatrix and Ariaka show up on this list as well. So we're going to go into this in a little bit, but I'm going to start with you, Graham, and kick it off with security. But everyone else, please feel free to interject. I know on the DevSecOps side, and many of you all have a hat in security as well. So when we start looking at these names, are you surprised to see a Sneak, Abnormal, Beyond Trust out here right now?
I'm really not. When I look at the markets that they play in, they're all vendors who have emerged over the past, I'd say, 6 months as leaders in the space. And not just because of the news and recent investments, but rather peers that I talk to, people that I see who are adopting them. So it actually made a lot of sense to me that those specific names would have jumped to the top of the list. The only real surprise for me was Beyond Trust.
Okay.
I mean, it's a name that's well known. It's been in the industry for a while. It's not quite as an up and comer, but I do think that in that particular space, they are seen as a leader. I just wouldn't have put them with Sneak and Abnormal and some of those other companies.
To your point, real quickly, just showing off the platform on a live basis. Beyond Trust is actually the third highest citations in the entire survey. So I mean, we're talking about behind Kubernetes only. So to your point, yes, this is not really an emerging name. It's in this group because it's still private and not public. But we'll sit on that for a second, because despite them being around for a while, the data on them still looked good. Actually, quite good, as you can see here. So do you think that that's a surprise simply because they've been around a long time? Or do you think maybe, the Okta breach, something, maybe they're just getting pulled into POCs a little bit, more often? What might be happening here?
Yeah, I think at the macro level, while identity has been around forever, right? So as long as we've had accounts on computers, we've had an identity space. It has gained more importance with a lot of digital transformation, cloud, and migration. So I'd say at a macro level, I think that there's definitely interest there. But for them specifically, I do think that they have been fairly innovative, and they do have a solution set that matches with a lot of those initiatives. So in that regard, I'm not surprised that Beyond Trust was one of the leading vendors, because I do think that they're well paired for cloud transformation and cloud initiatives.
I'm going to stick here for a little while. We have a bunch of other names that are really popping up. What we're also seeing out here is Aqua, Wiz, Orca. These are ones that really stood out. First of all, when we break down security into subsector, cloud security is number one, identity and access is number two. Does that make sense to you as opposed to some of these other areas? Do you think that's the right way of spending right now, Graham?
It really does. And I think that cloud security is going to be interesting to see how that evolves over time. I think one reason why that is so high, I don't think that's always interpreted or meant to be specific security solutions for only cloud. I think it may also be reflective of the fact that all security solutions are going to have to operate in cloud environments going forward. So when you look at that, and I think we had some data later we can talk to as well, I think that partially reflects that because cloud is the new infrastructure. So yeah, thank you. If to head this off a little bit, Eric, right? If you look at that, there's no way that we're going to be spending half of our security budgets only securing cloud environments in the future. So I think this is especially reflective of the fact that any security solution that we're investing in is going to have to support and operate in cloud environments. So if you look at maybe who to look at, who to acquire, who to invest in, the capability of acting in the cloud and to be compatible with those architectures is going to be hugely important in the future. And I mean, it's already very important right now.